Chapter 5 The Descendants of Adam. Verse 1. This is the list of the descendants of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them like himself. Verse 2. He created them male and female, blessed them, and named them humanity. Verse 3. When Adam was 130 years old, he had a son who was like him, and he named him Seth. Verse 4. After that, Adam lived another 800 years. He had other children. Verse 5. And died at the age of 930. Verse 6. When Seth was 105, he had a son, Enosh. Verse 7. And then lived another 807 years. He had other children. Verse 8. And died at the age of 912. Verse 9. When Enosh was 90, he had a son, Kenan. Verse 10. And then lived another 815 years. He had other children. Verse 11. And died at the age of 905. Verse 12. When Kenan was 70, he had a son, Mahalalel. Verse 13. And then lived another 840 years. He had other children. Verse 14. And died at the age of 910. Verse 15. When Mahalalel was 65, he had a son, Jared. Verse 16. And then lived another 830 years. He had other children. Verse 17. And died at the age of 895. Verse 18. When Jared was 162, he had a son, Enoch. Verse 19. And then lived another 800 years. He had other children. Verse 20. And died at the age of 962. Verse 21. When Enoch was 65, he had a son, Methuselah. Verse 22. After that, Enoch lived in fellowship with God for 300 years and had other children. Verse 23. He lived to be 365 years old. Verse 24. He spent his life in fellowship with God, and then he disappeared because God took him away. Verse 25. When Methuselah was 187, he had a son, Lamech. Verse 26. And then lived another 782 years. He had other children. Verse 27. And died at the age of 969. Verse 28. When Lamech was 182, he had a son. Verse 29. And said, from the very ground on which the Lord put a curse, this child will bring us relief from all our hard work. So he named him Noah. Verse 30. Lamech lived another 595 years. He had other children. Verse 31. And died at the age of 777. Verse 32. After Noah was 500 years old, he had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.